Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're taking a deep dive into a topic that's incredibly important and I think really fascinating.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It is. We're going to be looking at education in crisis zones.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're talking about places where there's conflict or disaster or really any kind of major emergency going on.
Yeah, where things are really tough.
Exactly. And we're going to explore how people manage to keep education going in those situations and why it's so crucial even when, basic survival is on everyone's mind.
Right. You would think that, with everything else going on, school would be the last thing people would be thinking about.
It's easy to think of it as like a luxury,
Yeah.
when you're just trying to stay safe and get food and water.
Right. But actually, it can be a lifeline.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to put it. So tell me more about that. Like, what makes providing education in these situations so different from, teaching in a regular school?
Well, just imagine trying to teach when you don't even have a classroom.
Okay, yeah,
I mean, the buildings might be destroyed, families are displaced, maybe scattered all over the
it
place.
makes sense.
You might have kids who've seen or experienced really traumatic things, and the teachers themselves are probably dealing with a lot of trauma and stress, too.
Right, right. That's a good point.
And then you've got the lack of basic resources like books and supplies. I mean, the whole educational system might be completely disrupted.
Yeah. And on
But
top of all that, just trying to keep everyone safe.
exactly. It's a whole other level of challenge.
So given all those obstacles, how do educators even begin to teach in these conditions? It's kind of mind-boggling.
Well, you have to be incredibly resourceful and adaptable. I mean, those
Mhm.
teachers are amazing.
I bet.
They use whatever they can find. They might set up mobile classrooms or combine different grade levels in one class because there aren't enough teachers.
Wow.
And I've even heard stories of teachers using like a chalkboard under a tree to keep lessons going.
That's amazing. Talk about dedication.
Right. It's really inspiring.
It is.
Yeah.
But it can't just be individual teachers, right? I mean, they
Yes.
must need some kind of support to make this happen.
Oh, absolutely. There are a lot of international organizations like UNICEF, UNESCO, and lots of NGOs that are doing incredible work in this area.
Right.
They provide funding, they develop learning materials that are specifically designed for crisis situations, and they train teachers in trauma-informed practices.
Trauma-informed practices. Can you explain what that means for our listener? Like, how does that work in a crisis setting?
Sure. It's all about recognizing that trauma has a huge impact on learning and behavior. So teachers are trained to create safe and supportive environments. They adjust their teaching methods to meet the emotional needs of the students, and they might incorporate activities that help kids cope with stress and build resilience.
Okay, yeah, so it's not just about academics. It's about supporting the whole child.
Exactly. It's a holistic approach.
I can see how that would be so important in these situations. But I'm also wondering, doesn't focusing on education sometimes take away resources from other urgent needs during a crisis, like food, shelter, medical care?
I see what you mean. That's a valid point. I think it's about finding a balance. But, we often see a strong connection between education and a community's ability to bounce back after a crisis.
Interesting.
Like there was this program in Haiti after the earthquake in 2010. The schools became community hubs. They offered classes, but also psychological support and skills training.
Okay.
And having that kind of multifaceted approach actually helps speed up the recovery process.
That's a really great example. It shows how education can be more than just learning facts and figures. It can be a way to rebuild a whole community.
Absolutely.
But what if the long-term impact on kids when their education is interrupted? Like what happens to them down the road?
Well, interrupting education can have some pretty devastating consequences. It increases the risk of things like exploitation, child labor, and early marriage, and it limits opportunities in the future. Without education, we risk creating a lost generation, and that has lasting effects on both individuals and society as a whole.
Right. That's a sobering thought. But I'm also thinking about all the ingenuity we've talked about, like with teachers using whatever resources they can find. And it makes me wonder about the role of technology in all of this. I mean, can technology really make a difference in these tough situations?
Absolutely. Technology can be a real game changer when it comes to providing access to education in crisis zones.
I can see how.
Think about online learning platforms, mobile devices that can deliver lessons, and communication tools that connect students and teachers even when they're far apart.
Right, right, like remote learning.
Exactly. Of course, limited internet access and electricity can be challenges in these settings, but technology definitely opens up a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, that's amazing to think about. I mean, technology can help bring education to even the most remote and challenging environments. But We can't forget about the human side of this. What about the emotional and mental health of students and teachers who've gone through these experiences, like displacement, trauma, uncertainty? How do those things affect them?
You're right. That's a critical aspect of education in crisis zones. We need to be providing counseling, support services, safe spaces for people to process their emotions. And again, those trauma-informed teaching practices are really crucial for addressing the emotional and psychological needs of everyone involved.
It's about more than just surviving. It's about healing and building a better future.
Exactly.
And can education actually play a role in promoting peace in conflict zones?
I believe it can. If educational programs are designed intentionally to promote peace building and teach conflict resolution skills, they can help people develop tolerance and understanding for those who are different from them. And by fostering empathy and breaking down those barriers, education can contribute to long-term stability and help to stop cycles of violence.
That's really encouraging. So to end on an inspiring note, do you have any examples of education initiatives in crisis zones that have made a real difference? Stories that really highlight the positive impact of this work.
Oh, there are so many. But one that sticks with me is a program in a refugee camp where they used radio broadcasts to deliver lessons to children who couldn't go to a regular school.
Wow, radio broadcasts.
Yeah, teachers would record their lessons and then kids would gather around radios to listen and learn. It's really incredible.
That's amazing. And it shows how much people value education even when they're facing incredibly difficult circumstances.
It does.
It's really inspiring to hear about these initiatives. What stands out to you about these examples, and what can our listener do if they want to support these efforts?
Well, what strikes me is the resilience and the unwavering commitment to learning, even in the face of adversity. It's truly remarkable.
Like-
And as for what our listeners can do, there are so many ways to get involved. They can donate to organizations like UNICEF or UNESCO or other groups working in this area. They can volunteer their time or simply raise awareness about the importance of education in crisis zones.
Right. Even small actions can make a big difference. So what's the big takeaway from all of this? What do we want our listener to remember?
I think the main takeaway is that education in crisis zones is not a luxury. It's a necessity.
Exactly.
It's a lifeline for individuals. It's essential for community resilience. And it's a seed of hope for a better future.
Well said. And I think it also leaves us with a really important question to think about.
What's that?
How can we as a global community make sure that education remains a top priority, even when the world feels like it's falling apart?
That's a great question. And it's one that we all need to be thinking about.
Thanks to everyone for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking, and we encourage you to stay curious and engaged with this important issue.
Thanks for listening.